Hey, what's up, YouTube? How's it going? Your boy Big B's back with another one. I hope you're having a good Saturday. I hope you're getting some good rest. I hope you have fun. So, here's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. We're going to talk about some things that young Big B imagined when he was in high school. First off, let me say this. There are definitely some goods in high school, but it was also really rough. There were a lot of kids who'd bully me and pick on me, and it just hurt. That's part of why I became so angry. And there were girls I was interested in, and they wanted nothing to do with me. And it was really hard to deal with. Anyway, let's get into it. So, here's this one thing I've imagined in high school. I'd imagine going to like a whole nother world to get a new brain. I imagine this whole other world where the aliens living in the world, they made this brain. And the brain's meant to go in anyone's head. Like if someone has a brain that doesn't work well, they can take the brain they made and put it in their head. And they can also use like a control panel to program the brain to work how you want it to. You know what I mean? I think you do. That's really a lot what I imagined in high school. And here's how I'd imagine it happening. Basically, what I imagined is I imagine being at school one day, and these kids would start picking on me. They'd start picking on me, saying hurtful things to me and stuff like that. Then I'd get to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. Then I'd run to the bathroom. And when I get in the bathroom, I start slamming my head against the wall as hard as I can. And while I'm doing it, I start screaming stuff like, F my life, yeah, F my life, yeah. I'd imagine that. And then after that, because I hurt myself so bad, I'd imagine being sent to the mental hospital. And then when I get out there, I imagine using like this type of machinery, like basically using some machine with a lot of electricity. Like, yeah, a machine that makes electricity. I know there's generators. I know that's what generators do, but this thing was different. I don't even know what it's called. But I imagine like hooking up to like these big bars. These big steel bars, and like pointing them in the air, and I imagine turning it on. And while it's running, I'd imagine shouting in my backyard. I think it's my front yard, actually, I'd imagine it in. I'd imagine starting to shout, I'm getting a new brain! And it's gonna happen the way I exactly imagined it. I'm getting a new brain. Give me a new brain. Give me a new brain. Give me a new brain. I'd imagine doing that. Then I go to bed, and the next day I wake up. These guys come to my house. They're like agents. Yeah, that's pretty much what they are. They're agents. And they get me, and they start telling me about the whole other world, and how there's a brain in it waiting to go in someone's head. They start telling me about that and telling me that I'd benefit from it a lot. Then they ask me, are you in? And I'm like, yep, I am. I'm like, yep, I'm in. Then we go to the airport. we get in the plane and we fly to the other world. And I'd imagine how we get to the other world is going through a portal. Like the people helping me, they make a portal to go through to get to the other world. Then I imagine the first day being there, we just rest and prepared. Then the second day, we fly to that island with the brain. Then I get there, I start using the control panel to set it up and make it work how I want it to. Then when I'm all done setting it up, I imagine, while I'm setting up, I imagine like having stuff hooked up to my head that'll make sure this brain gets out and the other one goes in. So I'd press the button. When I'm finished, I'd press the button and my brain would come out. I remember I imagine going like this. Like just completely passing out and being unconscious. Because like I don't have a brain in my head and the new one's still being programmed. And still being set up and like powering up. And then at some point I wake up. I'm finally conscious again. And I imagine being like just noticing the difference. Just noticing how much better I'm functioning and how much better I feel. I imagine that. And then one other thing I imagine, I bet at least some of you know who he is, but you know of that kid on this app called Freak Out Kid? Like his brother's name is Jack, and he always records his brother Steven freaking out and throwing temper tantrums and posts it on YouTube. And he calls each video greatest freak out ever. Like Steven obviously has some type of mental issue. So I imagine him going on a trip to try and get the new brain also. And he has his own group of people helping him. And I imagine right when I was done setting it up, the guys helping me were like, "We got company. We gotta get out of here." And then we try getting in the plane. And then Steven and his people find out I already got the brain. And they start fighting us. And I'm fighting them. My people and I are fighting Steven and his people. Then at some point all Steven's guys are down. And then Steven runs out of hope and gives up. That's what I imagined during that part. And then I imagined, so here's one thing I did in high school. So I had a wireless charger for my phone. And at some point I got to thinking, if I make notes and put them on my wireless charger, it'll send like some electromagnetic pulse to the universe to make whatever the note says happen. Some examples of notes I'd put on there are things like, make my brain work right, get rid of any disability I have, make me the way I want to be, make things go the way I want them to. Those are a few notes I'd put on the wireless charger. So I imagine having like this thing. I imagine this thing where I take all the notes of things I want, and then I put them in like this cube, and I take the cube to like this machine, and it makes everything I want actually happen. I imagine doing that on the journey also. And then I'd imagine, when all that's over, heading back home. And right when I got home, I'd imagine throwing a huge party at my house. Like a party celebrating that I got a new brain. And that my life's going way better. I imagine doing that. And like there was music playing, there'd be people drinking, maybe smoking weed, playing games, and just a good time. People swimming in the pool. And we'd just be having a good time. And then at some point, I remember during that, I'd imagine having my brain out there. And at some point, I'd imagine abusing the crap out of my brain. Like I'd imagine like hitting it with baseball bats, stabbing it with knives and stuff like that. Maybe hitting it with the hammer. I'd imagine doing a bunch of stuff like that to it and a bunch of people watching me and like getting hyped up about it. Like an example, when I stab my brain, I imagine it going like, ah, ah, ah. I imagine it starting to freak out and like just hurting it more and more, and it keeps freaking out. Then by the end, like when I imagine eventually my brain ends up being in critical condition, and while it is, it starts going like, eh, 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 eh. Like it's about to die. And then I'd imagine throwing it in the fire, putting flammable fluid on it. I imagine it starting to freak out more. You know, going like, ah, ah, ah. I imagine it getting bigger and bigger and bigger, kind of like a balloon. Then I'd imagine taking the knives. And I'm not sure if any of you played Call of Duty before or not, but if you do play Call of Duty, you know how when you throw a knife in there, it flips around like this? Then if it hits someone, it kills them. That's what I imagine doing to my brain, throwing the knives like you would in Call of Duty. And then like a bunch of holes go in it, and it starts slowly deflating. And as it deflates, it dies. And then we all keep celebrating. That's just this one thing I imagine in high school all the time. And it's probably because just these things I go through in life, because of the way my brain works, it really is challenging. And I was just desperate for some type of way so that it'll get better. And honestly, sometimes I'm still desperate to have something done to me that'll make my brain work better and make my life go better. Some examples are like making wishes that'll be granted, or getting stem cells done to my brain. Stem cells is the most realistic way though. But anyway, I think that'll wrap it up for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you subscribe to me right now, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you so much. And remember, if you have any questions for me, go ahead and ask me in the comments. I'll make a video doing my best to answer it. I hope you have a blessed day, and later.